If you think you're worth more than other people, you've been lied to. And if the system tells you that certain people are worth more than others, the system is lying too. I believe that every human being carries equal worth, and this has radical implications for economics. Of course, we do differ in talent, circumstances, or fortune, but not in our value as a human soul. No one is more sacred than anyone else. And yet we've built an economy that suggests otherwise, one that tells the powerful they're more important and teaches the rest of us to believe it. But here's the deeper truth. The rich are not truly more equal. This too is a lie. Material wealth is not real power. Status is not worth. You can be at the top of the system and still be completely trapped by it, because until you know that you're no better than anyone else and no worse, you're actually not free. True equality is a spiritual truth that can be claimed at any time, with or without money, land, credentials, or recognition. And once you claim it, not just as a slogan, but as a state of being, you begin to embody a different kind of wealth. Not just dignity, but creative power. Not just resilience, but authority. Not just equality, but influence. You are the economy. What you believe about equality doesn't just shape your politics, it shapes your presence in the world. Even if society denies you power, status, or wealth, you are never spiritually unequal. That's not something anyone can take from you unless you give it away. The moment you claim your equality, not in protest but in confidence, you begin to live it. And when enough people live it, the economy has no choice but to change, because it always was made of us. A little while back I made a video called Radical Equality as a Starting Point. In it I explained a simple but powerful idea. What if we stopped treating equality as something we might get to eventually and started building our economy on the assumption that it already exists? I talked about Jacques Rancière's notion that equality isn't a goal, but a premise, something we must presuppose if we're ever to structure a truly democratic society. In that video, I admitted that I didn't have all the answers, but I knew this much. If you start from inequality, you'll never design your way to justice. And if you assume equality, everything in the economy starts to look different. So what would it actually mean to build an economy that reflects radical equality in practice? This would not just be through fiscal policy or redistribution, but at the level of values, ownership, participation and culture, and perhaps even deeper than that, at the level of the human spirit, of human consciousness. The truth is that we can't build systems of equality on top of inner lives that are still shaped by fear, pride or superiority. Of course, most people support the idea of equality, but then we build systems that reward status, superiority and pride. We claim to believe that everyone matters, but we accept economic outcomes where some people's time is worth thousands of pounds an hour and others aren't even paid enough to eat. Here's the uncomfortable truth. No economic model will ever create justice until we accept deep down that we are not better than each other. We are not more intelligent, more valuable, more deserving by birth, by class, by wealth, by nationality, or by any other illusion we've inherited. Real equality doesn't begin in our economic status. It begins in the soul. Not in a religious sense, but in a simple, radical truth. You are not above anyone. No one is beneath you. That's not economics, that's ego. And unless we're willing to face that, no amount of fiscal engineering will fix what's broken. What would a system look like if it started from this principle of radical, sacred equality? Let's be clear, it wouldn't be about flattening everyone into sameness. It wouldn't be about perfect equality of outcome, but it would be about designing a system around a few basic truths. No one is disposable. No one is left out. Everyone has a right to thrive. I think that this has some very practical implications. Housing as a birthright, not a market reward. Education as liberation, not a sorting mechanism. Healthcare as basic solidarity, not a business transaction. Income floors, not just minimum wages. I've explored in another video the excellent idea of universal basic income. And wealth ceilings, not to punish success, but to stop it from becoming domination. And yes, it means rethinking ownership of land, capital and resources, not to eliminate private property, but to question how property creates power and how that power can exclude. Now, if you don't agree with the ideas that I'm putting forward, you might accuse me of being left-wing, almost Marxist, communist. I'll take that in a general sense, but in one way I differ dramatically from many left-wing economists. Traditional left-wing economics has tended to focus on redistribution, the idea that wealth is redistributed to ensure that everyone has a fair share, to use taxation and welfare to correct the inequality that is the consequence of our economic system. It's a really well-intentioned approach, and it has done real good. Welfare systems built from redistributed wealth have resulted in sometimes dramatic improvements in inequality. But I think we can go bigger than this. This idea still plays by the old rules. Redistribution accepts inequality as a given and then tries to soften its consequences. It allows systems of extraction and concentration to continue operating as long as a portion of the gains are redistributed through social programs. But radical equality asks a different question. What if we created a system that didn't result in such brutal inequality in the first place? This isn't about punishing the rich or handing out charity. It's about questioning the deeper logic, the logic that allows a small group to hoard resources, often by extracting value from others, and still be praised for their success. This could mean building new features into the economy, community wealth funds with local ownership of assets, reinvesting profits into public good, democratic firms and cooperatives where ownership and decision-making are shared, universal inheritance, a guaranteed capital grant at adulthood, funded by inheritance or other wealth taxes. But here's the deeper thing. Even the best designed policy will fail if we haven't dealt with the energy behind inequality, the hunger to feel superior. And we need to talk about the ego problem. Behind every extreme fortune is a story of ego, not always greed necessarily, but a deeper attachment to being above others. This manifests itself in the hoarding of opportunity, the myth of the self-made person, the disdain for the undeserving, the idea that winners deserve more because they tried harder. But most inequality is not earned, it's inherited or systematically protected. Sure, it may have come about as a result of hard work, but also as a result of luck, of being in the right place at the right time. The belief in superiority is the deepest lie of all. It's not just a political problem, it's a spiritual disorder. And unless we address it in ourselves, not just in the system, the economy will always be skewed towards domination. Imagine an economy that wasn't built around competition, but around care, compassion, love. Not around getting ahead, but around no one being left behind. Where we measured success not by profit margins, but by community well-being, ecological health, time to rest, love, create. The dignity of all roles, not just the high status ones. This doesn't mean abolishing ambition, but it does mean untangling ambition from the need to be seen as better than others. There's nothing wrong with striving as long as it doesn't come at the cost of another's dignity. I think that every human being is sacred. Everyone is made of the same life, breath, dust, energy. No one is above, no one is beneath. There is no natural hierarchy, only unnatural human-made systems. If we don't reflect this in how we structure our economy, in how we distribute power, opportunity and resources, then we're not serious about justice. We're just rearranging the furniture on a sinking ship. So what do? I think we start small. We challenge superiority in systems, yes, but also in ourselves. We ask different questions. What would education look like if its goal was to unlock human potential, not assign social rank? What would a housing policy look like if no one was disposable, if everyone was provided with basic shelter? What would a tax system look like if we weren't trying to feel morally superior to those we help? And here's the big ticket. What would happen if, as individuals, we act as if the equality we seek already exists, and that the economy's job is to make that visible? Radical equality isn't just policy, it's a posture. It's a truth we choose to live by. It's the foundation for everything else in this new economic movement. Because if we don't start here, we'll always be designing injustice into the blueprint. And here's the final uncomfortable truth. No economic policy will ever truly end inequality if we don't change from within. Not just the marginalised or the poor, but also the wealthy, the admired, the ones who appear to be more equal than others. Because material power is a performance, and deep down, many of the people who seem to have it know that it's fragile, hollow, performative. It keeps them separate, and it keeps them afraid. You might be rich, you might be powerful, but if your worth depends on being above others, then you're not free. You're still a prisoner of the system and of your own fear of failing. We are equal, not in what we earn or own, but in our essence, in our consciousness, in our capacity to connect, to create, to heal and be healed. Equal not just with each other, but with all life, sharing one fragile world on this strange living planet floating through the void. That recognition is not weakness, it's power, the only kind that doesn't depend on winning. So if we want to build a new economy, we have to start here, with a shift in perception, with the courage to step out of the hierarchy, with the quiet radical truth that no one is above, no one is beneath, and that the earth belongs to all of us. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.